When I first graduated from college, it was 2008, and it was the peak of the recession. My first job was with a fundraising firm. We were raising money for different nonprofit organizations, but it was a very big organization, so we were raising hundreds of millions of dollars. Because it was the recession, people were losing their jobs, losing their pension, losing their retirement, and yet we're out here fundraising, asking for money. So we just kept hearing no, no, no. And my bosses were freaking out. So every day I woke up with this knot in my stomach that I was gonna lose my job that day, and nobody else was hiring. So I was kind of flung out into the world after college, had all these college loans, was paying rent for the first time, had bills, and really thought every day that my job was gonna be gone. And even if it wasn't, my bosses were angry and pretty mean. So it was rough. And I didn't have any healthy coping mechanisms. I had never been taught, how do you deal with that level of stress? How do you deal with that level of anxiety? Especially if you've never had it before growing up and it just kind of overcomes you one day out of nowhere. What do you do? So I turned to drugs and alcohol, which are coping mechanisms. They're just not healthy coping mechanisms. And unfortunately, they're far too pervasive in our society, I feel. So I was in my early 20s and everybody around me was also partying. So it seemed like it was okay. But for me, it got out of control really fast. I have genetically, it's just in my family, you know, it's just addictive behavior is there. So I was so lucky and so blessed that at 24 years old, I hit rock bottom. And I can say it now with a smile on my face because it's been so long. But back then it was the worst time of my life. And I got sober at 24 years old, stopped doing drugs, stopped drinking. But 6 months into my sobriety, I was still chain smoking cigarettes, which was just so disgusting. And I just couldn't believe I was doing that, especially after giving up the really hard stuff, you know, that was so much a part of my identity. So a friend of mine said, my mom quit smoking with hypnotherapy. Why don't you give it a shot? Now, if I hadn't just been so humbled and knocked to my knees and realized I didn't have all the answers and I didn't know what was best for me necessarily, I would have never tried it. I would have said, what is that, clucking like a chicken or mind control or something ridiculous? But I just was, at that point in my life, open to anything. And I trusted this friend. So I went, I had one hypnotherapy session and I quit smoking. Because my background was in human rights and in fundraising and in wanting to make the world a better place, my reaction to that wasn't, oh, that's neat, I'm glad that worked, I'm glad it wasn't a waste of money, let me go on with my life. My reaction was, why does anybody have emphysema? Why does anybody have lung cancer? Why is anybody smoking who doesn't want to smoke? Why doesn't the world know what this is? Because it's nothing like clucking like a chicken. It's nothing like what you've seen on the movies, and yet it's so powerful. So I wanted to test it out a bit more. I actually used it to overcome fear of public speaking. That took a little longer, about 10 sessions. Now I'm paid thousands of dollars for public speaking. And before I couldn't even get on the stage. It totally changed my life. So I went and I got a certification just because I was blown away by this. The same thing that helped me quit smoking helped me overcome public speaking and totally changed my life. You know, I was terrified to have a little board meeting with 5 people in it. Now I can speak to thousands of people. A month after I got my certification, the guy I was dating at the time, his father was a UN peacekeeping ambassador in Syria. If you've seen on the television the guys with the blue berets, that's where he was, in the most dangerous place in the world right now, right? Syria, or at least one of the most dangerous. While he was there, his UN convoy was bombed, and he remembers looking out the window of his convoy at a guy pointing a bazooka at his window, and then it just went black. And he had a stroke, and when he had the stroke, he lost the use of the left side of his body. He was paralyzed at 46 years old. So 3 months later, he was flown to New York City to the Rusk Institute, which is a great institution, a great hospital, rehabilitation hospital. And the guy I was dating said, can you just go see my father, just see if you can help improve his mood because he's so depressed, he's broken, his identity's gone. So I said, okay, I'll see what I can do. I've been doing this for a month. And I show up in the hospital and there's all these white coats, you know, surgeons and doctors and professionals. And I get there and I just see this man lying there in this bed so broken he can barely look me in the eyes. And I just said, okay, we're just going to do this to help improve your mood. And we start with the hypnotherapy. And halfway through the session, something just came over me. And I heard in my head this thing that said, he's military, be militant. And normally hypnotherapy is like, relax, close your eyes. But I felt this feeling and I just said, Alexandre, I want you to imagine an electric spark in the left-hand side of your body. And I want you to imagine that electricity flowing down the left-hand side of your face, flowing down your shoulder, flowing through your arm, flowing through your hand, and flowing out your finger. And I hadn't even finished the word and he was moving his finger. So he opened his eyes and he said, what do I do now? And I said, keep moving your finger. Like all the professionalism was gone. He started crying. I started crying. The doctor was crying. The nurse was crying. And by the end of that session, he had this much range of motion. He'd been paralyzed for 3 months. So that day I was walking home down Fifth Avenue and I said, that's it. Whatever this is, it's a human rights issue that people don't know about it. I quit my job that day. The next week I launched my business with Living Social, which is like a Groupon. And I sold 924 vouchers in 24 hours. So my first year in business, I did 1,000 private sessions, making me one of the most experienced hypnotherapists right off the bat. And I've been on a mission to make it mainstream ever since.
Thank you for watching A Wise Way. Subscribe to stay updated, share to pass the knowledge, or view our other videos on the left.